Hi there, this is David, and welcome to my review of Harvestella, released for the Nintendo Switch as well as the PC. Before we begin, I would like to thank Square Enix for presenting me with a free copy for a review. About a month ago, when the demo was released, I created a review for that, where I was really pleasantly surprised by the game. I think that I came in expecting something like Harvest Moon, Story of Seasons, or Stardew Valley, but I ended up with something much more combat-driven, even more so than Rune Factory. In all honesty, I would actually compare this to the earlier Mana games, rather than anything related to a farm sim. Farming is just a means to an end, it's not the goal of the game, and if it were up to me, and I was in charge of Square Enix, I would have just changed a couple of things here and there, and then retitled this Harvest of Mana, because that's totally the vibes that I'm getting here. But let's start at the beginning. There's a lot to unpack here, and Harvestella has a lot to offer. But if you take one piece in isolation, it's just kinda meh. However, the game is really the sum of its parts, and putting everything together gives you a game that's incredibly charming and special. This is definitely something that you don't want to judge by its title, or more importantly, by its first few hours. Because let's be honest, the first chapter really kinda sucks. It's boring as hell. But after the tutorials and exposition's over, it opens up and it becomes a mana in all but name. Harvestella proceeds on a time-based system. For every action that you take, time ticks down, and once night falls, you'd better scoot off to bed before you pass out and faint from exhaustion. If you die in battle or faint, not only will the doctor charge you for her services, but you'll lose the entirety of the next morning, so you really don't want that to happen. I normally found myself tending to the tasks of my farm, cooking, crafting, and tying up loose ends until around noon, and then I would go on and move to the next task at hand, whether that was taking care of side quests or delving deeper into the dungeons. This is definitely a slow burn. Each day, you'll get a little bit further than the next. You'll gain that level, reach that gold threshold, open up that next chest, or repair that bridge, or lower that ladder, just so you can inch on a little tiny bit farther. This is not a game to be rushed, this is a game to be savored. While the demo covered up to the first two chapters, and they were pretty linear, it definitely opens up in Chapter 3. You're introduced to the Fire Fairy, who you rescued from the Fire Seas Light, and she tells you that the rest of the fairies have gone missing. So, if you can solve the plight of each stone, you can rescue the other fairies as well, and thus, your real quest begins. Since each Seas Light is in a different part of the world, it makes sense that the game now splits into 3 separate paths. It's pretty open, and you have your choice on where to go. South to rescue the Water Fairy from the Summer Seas Light, East to rescue the Wind Fairy from the Spring Seas Light, or West to the Holy Capital, where the Earth Fairy and the Winter Seas Light lie. Each region is accompanied by their own cast of characters, new party members, different jobs, towns, and dungeons. And although you can do them in whatever order you do desire, the game does do a good job in guiding you along to the easiest path, so you don't feel too overwhelmed or confused. The heart and soul of Harvestella is not the town, your farm, or even the combat and exploration. The heart and soul is instead found in all the characters that you come across. Not only do they adhere to their own schedule, but they divvy out plenty of side quests too. And unlike a lot of RPGs these days, they're not filler quests. It's not just some random nameless NPC sending you on some random fetch quest. These are people that you get to know, and stories that are coherent, and even more importantly, the rewards are actually worth it. I really liked how each quest built on one another. For example, one woman will ask you to investigate a ghost in the house, only to find a woman living there who's waiting for her lover to come home. Later on, you'll come across him out fighting, and you'll reunite them in another quest. Or there's the children who learn that the girlfriend is moving, so they get her a gift. Or there's little orphan Annie, who wants to be adopted with a good friend. Each of these quests is part of a much larger line that builds on one another. They are meaningful interactions with the inhabitants of the world, and by the end of the game, you really do start to grow and love and care for them. Combat's pretty basic, and I like that. I am not here for Dark Souls, Devil May Cry, or Nioh. I'm here for some basic action fun. There's no dodging or rolling around, it's just hack and slash, but with a job class twist. There are 12 job classes interspersed throughout the world, of which you can equip 3 at a time. Then, in combat, you can switch among those 3 at any point. You can begin the battle as a mage, blasting at range, and then switch on over to a fighter to close in the gap, slicing them to ribbons. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but after a while, it's going to become second nature. It's a lot of fun to experiment with each job and switch on the fly as weaknesses dictate. As you level up, you'll gain JP to gain new skills and attacks too. And don't worry, you're not alone. In Chapter 3, our futuristic mystery girl Aria will join up, and then shortly afterwards Asshole too. Then, more and more will keep coming and going and coming, each with their own playstyle and locked-in job class. Kind of like a modern-day Ease, or the aforementioned, Secret of Mana. One thing that I really didn't like was the enemy AI though. Sometimes, no matter what I did, the bosses would just always target me. I'd sit in the back as a mage, barely doing anything, but those bosses would still have it in for me. My partners would have max health, but then I would still have to heal constantly because of their singular focus. Also, your allies will only target a monster after you've attacked it first, so you can't just send them off to fight on their own. They're kind of stupid in that way. Also, you can only control your main hero, not your allies. Though, since they can't change job classes, it would be a huge handicap to actually want to control them. Other than those few combat nitpicks, I was fine with everything else. I could go on and gush about the game all day, but the fact remains that I, along with many others, have been patiently waiting for Square Enix to go back to the games of yore. Back to those games of simpler times, where they focused on characters, world building, and fun gameplay, rather than that flash-in-the-pan, glitzy glamour graphics. And this, my friends, is an answer to our prayers. This is an homage to games past. This is a simpler, relaxing, calming game that you can play to unwind after a busy day at work, and while I didn't think that I would like it all that much at first, I am certainly glad that I did not judge it by its cover and that I gave it a shot, because I had a blast. So, that's it for my review of Harvestella. If you like this video and what I do here on the channel, please consider heading on over to Patreon for some exclusive videos and early access to my content, coming on over to Twitch for some streaming fun, or coming to my Discord to chat and hang out. The links to them all can be found in the video description. This has been David, and if you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.